In the vast pantheon of Shinobi World legends, no name evokes as much fascination as that of Orochimaru. He is not merely a survivor, he is the very personification of mutation and persistence. Considered a prodigy who appears only once a century, Orochimaru was the third Hokage's favorite disciple, but his brilliant mind concealed an abyss of darkness that not even the bonds of friendship of the legendary Sannin could fill. While other ninjas sought glory or peace, he fixed his eyes on the only goal that nature deems impossible: absolute immortality. On this journey, he did not hesitate to desecrate graves, sacrifice innocents, and betray his own blood to unlock the secrets of all the world's jutsu. Prepare for a deep dive into the story of the one who abandoned his humanity to become an eternal deity among serpents. Orochimaru's story begins under the brilliance of genius, but shrouded in a fog of tragedy. Orphaned at a young age, the loss of his parents left an open wound that not even Hiruzen Sarutobi's teachings could heal. The definitive turning point in his psyche occurred on a seemingly ordinary day, while he was visiting his parents' grave. There, he found the discarded skin of a rare white snake. When he questioned his master, he learned that it was a symbol of good fortune and, more importantly, of rebirth. That empty skin became a metaphor for what he desired for himself: the ability to abandon an old and frail body to be reborn into something new. While his teammates, Jiraiya and Tsunade, dealt with their own pain through persistence and healing, Orochimaru began to distance himself from human morality. For him, life was not a cycle to be respected, but a technical flaw to be corrected by science and forbidden jutsus. Within Konoha's hierarchy, Orochimaru rose like a rocket, but his personality was an enigma to his peers. As a teenager, he was the archetype of the perfect shinobi, calculating, silent, and gifted with frightening sensory perception. Under Hiruzen Sarutobi's tutelage, he didn't just learn jutsus, he dissected them. While Jiraiya was the loser who tried to impress everyone with effort and humor, Orochimaru was the natural genius who looked at others' efforts with veiled disdain. The relationship between the two was a distorted version of friendship. Jiraiya saw him as a brother and a rival to be surpassed, but Orochimaru saw in Jiraiya an emotional weakness that he considered pathetic. This rivalry wasn't about fists, but about ideologies. Orochimaru followed the standard path of the elite. He became a Chunin and Jonin in record time, leading infiltration missions where his coldness was a lethal weapon. However, even as a village hero, he already showed disturbing signs. Instead of celebrating victories, he spent hours on battlefields observing the decomposition of bodies. For Hiruzen, he was the ideal successor, the man who would inherit the will of fire. But behind the scenes, Orochimaru was already using his military prestige to access the restricted archives of Konoha's library, beginning to map out what would become his greatest heresy: the manipulation of life and death through forbidden knowledge. Orochimaru's consecration came amidst the blood and mud of the Second Great Ninja War. It was during the brutal confrontation against Hanzo of the Salamander, the leader of the village hidden in the rain, that he, Jiraiya, and Tsunade resisted when everyone else had fallen. For their tenacity, Hanzo christened them the Densetsu no Sannin, the legendary ninjas. But while the world saw three heroes, Orochimaru saw only an opportunity for mass study. For him, war was the perfect laboratory. Ethics became irrelevant in the face of the need for survival. It was during this period that he crossed paths with a young war orphan who would change the course of his plans, Kabuto Yakushi. Unlike other ninjas who saw orphaned children only as victims, Orochimaru saw in Kabuto a reflection of himself, someone without roots, with an innate talent for medicine and a mind capable of processing information coldly. Orochimaru didn't just adopt Kabuto, he molded him to be his eyes and ears in the shadows. As he rose through the ranks of Konoha, being considered for the position of fourth Hokage, Orochimaru used his influence to divert resources and military funds to underground laboratories. He began performing experimental transplants, injecting Hashirama Senju cells into dozens of kidnapped children, desperately seeking the secret of wood release and infinite vitality. For Orochimaru, the glory of being a Sannin was merely a convenient facade to hide the screams echoing from his research complexes hidden beneath the surface of the Leaf Village. Konoha's hero facade finally crumbled on a cold, damp night on the outskirts of the village. Hiruzen Sarutobi, driven by persistent rumors of missing ninjas and children, led an Anbu unit to a clandestine laboratory that Orochimaru himself believed to be undetectable. What the third Hokage found there was a scene of absolute horror: giant test tubes filled with biological fluids and mutilated bodies that served as drafts for Orochimaru's deranged quest for immortality. When confronted by his master, Orochimaru showed no remorse or fear. Instead, he displayed an icy grin, mocking the will of fire which, according to him, was merely a limitation to true human potential. Hiruzen, paralyzed by the love he felt for his favorite student, hesitated at the crucial moment. He had the chance to deliver the fatal blow, but his hand trembled at the sight of the prodigy he so admired.
Hey guys, if you've watched this far and are enjoying these details, give us a hand, like the video and share it with that friend of yours who's also a Naruto fan. It takes a lot of work to produce this content with this level of realism, so your support is what keeps the channel growing. We're in this together.
This emotional weakness allowed Orochimaru to escape, but not before leaving a deep scar on the heart of Konoha. By crossing the borders of the Leaf Village as a dummy rogue ninja, Orochimaru wasn't just running away, he was breaking free from the shackles of morality. It was in this exile that he began plotting his revenge and establishing his own spy network, becoming a shadow looming over the 5 great nations, ready to collect the pieces of a puzzle that would lead him to eternal life.
After abandoning Konoha, Orochimaru's quest for power led him to one of the 3 legendary and unexplored locations in the ninja world, the Ryuchi cave. Unlike Jiraiya, who found wisdom among the toads, Orochimaru dived into the snake's den to seek the white snake sage. It was in this mystical and terrifying place that he learned the secrets of serpentine biology, mastering the art of stretching his body, shedding his skin to heal mortal wounds, and summoning the colossal Manda. However, Orochimaru faced a personal tragedy within the cave. His body, already weakened by experiments and constant vessel swapping, was not strong enough to endure the snake sage mode in its fullness. He obtained the knowledge, but not the perfect form. This frustration is what led him to create the cursed seal. Since he couldn't access sage mode directly, he developed a way to inject this natural energy into his subordinates, turning them into living extensions of his power and preparing the ground so that, one day, he could inhabit a body capable of withstanding all that Senjutsu chakra. In exile, Orochimaru sought refuge and resources within an organization operating in the shadows, Akatsuki. But he wasn't there out of loyalty. He had a single goal: to obtain a body possessing the Sharingan. It was within this group of elite criminals that he fixed his eyes on Itachi Uchiha. Orochimaru believed that, despite Itachi's talent, he could subdue him and claim his body. However, the encounter was a brutal reality check. Before Orochimaru could even begin his attack, he was already under the sway of Itachi's Jinjutsu. In an instant, he found himself pinned by spiritual nails, powerless before the Uchiha's cold gaze. Itachi severed his hand and left him alive only as a warning. All the science in the world could not overcome the absolute visual power of the Uchiha gods. Humiliated and now a traitor to the organization, Orochimaru fled Akatsuki, taking with him the Void Ring and an even more dangerous obsession, turning his attention to the youngest and most moldable member of the clan, Sasuke. The Chunin exams in Konoha were the perfect stage for Orochimaru's triumphant and macabre return. To infiltrate the heart of the village, he utilized one of his most disturbing techniques, the Shushinton no Jutsu, which allowed him to literally wear the faces and bodies of others like rubber masks. This is how he emerged as Shior, a ninja from the hidden grass village. This raises a question that haunts fans to this day: is Orochimaru male or female? The truth is that he has become a transhuman being. Through his soul transfer ritual, the Fushi no Jutsu inhabits vessels of any gender, according to his need for power or longevity. To him, gender is irrelevant, the body is merely a flask for his immortal essence. Inside the Forest of Death, Shior's disguise served to sardonically test Sasuke's potential. In a display of pure psychological terror, he paralyzed Team 7 with his bloodlust, forcing Sasuke to face the fear of absolute death. The climax of this encounter was not a common ninjutsu technique, but the bite of the cursed seal. By sinking his fangs into Sasuke's neck, Orochimaru was not just granting the boy power, he was leaving a fragment of his own consciousness within him, an anchor ensuring that no matter where Sasuke fled, he would always belong to the Serpent. It was a parting gift that forced even his former apprentice, Anko Mitarashi, to confront the master who once marked and abandoned her like a disposable experiment. The Konoha Crush plan was the masterpiece of Orochimaru's betrayal. To orchestrate the invasion from within, he didn't just infiltrate. He eliminated the fourth Kazekage, the leader of the Sand Village, and assumed his identity. For weeks, Orochimaru sat beside his former master, Hiruzen, hidden under royal robes and the Kazekige's hat, mocking Konoha's vigilance while preparing the ground for chaos. The moment he reveals his true face on the arena rooftop is one of the most impactful in the series. There, isolated by a barrier erected by the Sound Four, the duel of generations began. But Orochimaru wouldn't fight alone. He profaned the eternal rest of Konoha's founders by using the Kuchiyos, Edo Tensei summoning, impure world resurrection. Seeing Hashirama and Tobirama Senju, the first and second Hokage, being brought back as soulless puppets was the final psychological blow to Hiruzen. Orochimaru didn't just want to win, he wanted to prove that even the gods of Konoha were tools in his hands. The ensuing battle was not just physical, it was a clash between the will of fire and the serpent's cold ambition, culminating in the use of the Shiki Fujin, the Reaper Death Seal, where Hiruzen gave his life to seal Orochimaru's arms, stripping him of the ability to perform any jutsu. The cost of the invasion was bitter. Although Hiruzen Sarutobi fell, he did not depart without first taking what Orochimaru prized most, the use of his hands. Condemned to constant, necrotic pain, rising through his arms sealed by the Reaper, Orochimaru saw his empire of jutsus crumble. Desperate, he sought out his former teammate, Tsunade, the world's greatest medical ninja, offering her the unthinkable, resurrecting her brother and her lover in exchange for healing his arms. But fate had other plans. Rejected by Tsunade, and forced to prematurely switch bodies to a generic vessel to alleviate his pain, Orochimaru focused all his remaining energy on attracting Sasuke. He sent the Sound Four to test the young Uchiha's thirst for revenge, fueling Sasuke's hatred for Itachi. Orochimaru knew exactly which buttons to press. He offered the shortcut to power that Konoha would never allow. When Sasuke finally crossed the village gates to join the Sound, Orochimaru smiled, even in agony. He hadn't just gained an apprentice, he had secured the perfect body, the vessel that would carry his soul for eternity, while the ninja world watched, helpless, as Konoha's last prodigy heir fell into the Serpent's clutches. At the beginning of the Shippuden phase, Orochimaru was no longer just a ninja, he was a creature of pure chakra and regeneration. The reunion with Naruto Uzumaki at the Tenchai Bridge provided one of the most visceral battles of the entire series. Facing Naruto's fury in his Four Tails form, Orochimaru showcased the Yamata no Jutsu, the eight-headed Hydra technique, and his bizarre ability to vomit a new body from within himself to heal fatal wounds. He laughed in the face of Kurama's power, treating the Jinchuriki as a field experiment. However, behind the arrogance, Orochimaru's time was running out. His current vessel was rejecting his soul, and the body of Sasuke Uchiha, now a young man of overwhelming power, was his only salvation. For 3 years, Orochimaru molded Sasuke, teaching him forbidden jutsus and amplifying his speed and vision. But he made the classic mistake of tyrants, underestimating the will of his prey. At the moment when Orochimaru was at his weakest, bedridden and coughing blood, Sasuke decided the disciple no longer needed the master. In an ironic twist, the predator became the prey. Sasuke invaded the Serpent's sanctuary, declaring that Orochimaru was merely a crawling monster who did not deserve the eyes of the Uchiha. The battle in the mental plane of the soul transfer was the final blow. Sasuke absorbed Orochimaru's essence, imprisoning the master within his own cursed seal. It seemed like the definitive end of the Serpent. During the titanic battle between Sasuke and Itachi, at the moment Sasuke ran out of chakra, Orochimaru's will broke through the chains and emerged in the form of the colossal Yamata no Orochi, the eight-headed Hydra. He believed that was his moment of glory, the instant he would finally claim the body of an exhausted Uchiha. But he didn't count on Itachi's trump card, the Susanoo armed with the legendary Totsuka sword. In a masterstroke, Orochimaru was pierced by the mystical blade and sealed in a world of eternal Jinjutsu, sucked into a sake gourd. However, death is a relative concept for Orochimaru. During the Fourth Great Ninja War, Sasuke realized he needed answers that only his former master possessed. Using a piece of Kabuto's flesh and the cursed seal on Anko Midarashi's neck, Sasuke performed the Kaija Hain evil releasing seal, bringing Orochimaru back to the world of the living. But the being that emerged was no longer the bloodthirsty villain of years past. By observing Kabuto's growth, who tried to become a perfect copy of his master and failed by being trapped in the Izanami, Orochimaru had an epiphany. He realized that trying to control the wind was futile. It was far more interesting to observe where the wind would blow through Sasuke's actions. Orochimaru's return in the Fourth Great Ninja War was marked not by attacks, but by a display of absolute knowledge. In one of the most epic moments of the entire saga, he infiltrated the Uzumaki clan's mask storage temple to recover what the Reaper had taken from him years before, his hands and the souls of Konoha's former leaders. With a mastery of the Edo Tensei that surpassed Kabuto's, he brought back the first 4 Hokages in their prime. There, before his former enemies and masters, Orochimaru did not seek the throne, he sought understanding. He watched Sasuke make his decision, and surprising everyone, joined forces with the Shinobi Alliance, proving that his loyalty now belonged to the survival of the world he so desperately wanted to study. Today in Boruto, Orochimaru is a figure of shadows and science. He lives under constant surveillance by Konoha, but his quest for eternity has finally found a new form, the creation of Mitsuki. By creating a perfect synthetic human, Orochimaru transitioned from being just a body snatcher to becoming a father in his own distorted way, focusing on genetic evolution instead of world domination. He remains the greatest scientific mind in the ninja world, an eternal observer who, after centuries of crimes and glory, finally understood that true immortality is not about living forever, but about seeing the next generation surpass the ones before them. The serpent has shed its skin one last time, but his yellow eyes continue to watch every movement of destiny. So, did you enjoy this complete journey through the mind of the serpent? If this video helped you understand why Orochimaru is one of the greatest villains of all time, don't forget, leave that like and share it with your friends. Producing a detailed script and generating these realistic images takes a lot of ninja work, so your support is what keeps the channel standing. We're in this together, and I'll see you in the next video.